Hi friends, I'm here to continue with the next installment. Ralph just got done riding the motorcycle down the hall of the hotel, and it was his first time being that far away from home, and he had a great time at his adventure. Now he is locked out of the room because a breeze blew the door shut. The next thing Ralph knew, Matt the bellboy was standing over the top of him. "Aren't you out pretty late?" Matt asked, causing Ralph to jump to his feet even though he was not entirely awake. "You should have been in bed long ago, but I suppose you were out till all hours, speeding around on that motorcycle." Ralph had seen Matt many times, but this was the first time the old man had spoken to him. He was astonished to discover they spoke the same language. Even so, Ralph stood in front of the motorcycle. Anyone who tried to take it away from him would first have to fight Ralph. "Nice little machine you got there," remarked Matt. "I kind of wish I was young enough to ride one myself. Must be fun speeding along, making all that noise." Ralph realized that Matt was a friend. "Say," he began, "how about helping a fellow out?" "Sure," agreed Matt. "What can I do for you?" "Open the door a crack." "Just enough so I can ride through," promised the boy. I promised the boy I would park his motorcycle under the bed. "Good place," said Matt. "The maid never cleans there if she can help it." Very quietly, he turned the knob and opened the door just enough for Ralph to ride through. Ralph bumped up over the edge of the carpet, swung around the wastebasket and the bedside table, and was about to drive under the bed when, "Eek!" screamed the boy's mother, who was standing in the doorway between 2:15 and 2:16 in her bathrobe with her hair up on rollers. "A mouse!" Ralph put on a burst of speed and shot under the bed. "Where?" asked the boy's father, coming in from room 216. "Under the bed." "Oh, look, Mom," said the boy, jumping out of bed. Keith's face appeared under the lifted edge of the bedspread where Ralph sat trembling on the motorcycle. The boy held out his hand and beckoned. Ralph understood. He dismounted and ran up the boy's arm inside the sleeve of his pajamas until he came to the crook of his elbow. There he waited, shivering, to see what would happen next. Down at the end of the sleeve, he could see the boy's fingers close around the motorcycle. Then he felt himself being lifted as the boy rose from his hands and knees. "It's just my motorcycle," Keith said. "Yes, that's it," agreed his mother. The door opened and the mouse rode in. The boy's father began to laugh. "You are still dreaming." "But I'm positive," insisted the boy's mother. "That you saw a mouse on a little red motorcycle?" finished the boy's father, and laughed even harder. "You make it sound so ridiculous," objected the mother. "Well," the father snorted with laughter. "Well, perhaps I was dreaming," admitted the mother reluctantly. "But I know I saw a mouse. I'm positive, and I am going to report it to the management. I knew the minute we moved into this spooky old place that it had mice." "Now I've done it," thought Ralph inside the pajama sleeve. Chapter 6, A Peanut Butter Sandwich. "I told you to be careful," scolded Keith when his parents had gone to dress and Ralph had crawled down his arm into the hand. "It wasn't my fault the door blew shut." Ralph jumped from the hand to the bedspread. Though Keith was a friendly boy, even a generous one, Ralph still did not like the feel of the skin against his paws. It must be terrible to go through life without fur, and such a nuisance having to wear clothes that had to be washed and drip dried. Ralph knew all about drip drying. Many were the drops of water from shirts and slips that he had dodged going in and out of his mouse hole. "You didn't have to stay out so long," Keith pointed out as he began to dress. "What's the use of having a motorcycle if you can't go tearing around staying out late?" Ralph asked reasonably. "You don't have a motorcycle," said Keith. "I just let you use mine. And you better be careful. I like that motorcycle and I don't want anything to happen to it." "I'll take care of it," promised Ralph, somewhat chastened. "I don't want anything to happen to it either. It's going to be harder to get a chance to ride it now that my mother has seen you," said Keith. "She's a terribly good housekeeper, and she's sure to complain to management." "Speaking of breakfast, you People are too tidy, complained Ralph. I'm not getting enough to eat around here. You don't leave any crumbs. I never thought of it, said Keith. What would you like to eat? Ralph was astounded. This was the first time in his life anyone asked him what he would like to eat. It had always been a question of what he could get his paws on. You mean I have a choice? He asked, incredulous. Sure, said the boy. All I have to do is order it when we go down to breakfast and then bring you some. Ralph had to take time to think. After a diet of graham crackers provided by little children, bits of candy, and an occasional peanut or apple core left by medium-sized children, or a crust of toast and a dab of jam left by an adult who ordered breakfast sent up from room service, the possibilities of choosing his own meal were almost too much. I know what I'd like, Ralph said at last, but I don't know what you call it. Once some people who said they were almost out of money stayed in these rooms. They had 4 children, all of them hungry, and they couldn't afford to go to the dining room, so they got some bread and spread it with something brown out of a jar and put some more bread on top of that. They whispered all the time that they were eating because they didn't want the maid or the bellboy to know they were having a meal in their room. Afterwards, they all got down on their hands and knees and picked up every single crumb on the carpet so nobody would guess that they had eaten in their rooms. It was a great disappointment. It smelled so good. Like peanuts, only better. The boy laughed. It was a peanut butter sandwich. Sure, I'll bring you a peanut butter sandwich, or part of one. I'll eat part of it myself. It'll be kind of a funny breakfast, but I won't mind that. Where will you leave it? Asked Ralph. Keith thought a minute. Where do you live? He asked. In the knothole under the window. No kidding, Keith laughed. That's the hole I poked my finger in last night. I'll say you did, said Ralph. Scared me out of a year's growth. Nobody has ever guessed it's a mouse hole because it's a knothole instead of a chewed hole. I'll tell you what, said Keith. I'll bring up part of a peanut butter sandwich and poke it through the knothole. Just like room service. Ralph could not have been more pleased with the suggestion. What about the motorcycle? He asked. Where are you going to leave that? In my suitcase, I guess. Aw, come on, pleaded Ralph. Have a heart. Leave it someplace where I can get to it while you're out during the day. You're supposed to be in your mouse hole asleep, not riding around in the daylight where people can see you. Well, gee whiz, can't a fellow even look at it? Asked Ralph. I bet you like to look at big motorcycles yourself. Yes, I do, admitted the boy. Well, I'll leave it back under the bed like I said, but you promise not to ride it until after dark. Scout's honor. Ralph jumped off the bed and ran off to the knothole. Ralph's home was furnished with a clutter of things people drop on the floor of a hotel room. Bits of Kleenex, hair, ravelings. His mother was always planning to straighten it out, but she never got around to it. She was always too busy fussing and worrying. Now, as Ralph expected, she was dividing rye crisp crumbs among his squeaky bunch of little brothers and sisters while she waited to scold him. Ralph, if I have told you once, I've told you 1,000 times, she began. Guess what? Interrupted Ralph in an attempt to change the subject. Somebody in 215 is going to bring us a real peanut butter sandwich. Ralph, cried his frightened mother, you haven't been associating with people. He's just a boy, said Ralph, deciding to keep the complete story of the dangers and glories of the past night to himself. He wouldn't hurt us. He likes mice. But he's a person, said his mother. That doesn't mean he has to be bad, said Ralph. Just like Pop used to say, people shouldn't say all mice are timid just because some mice are, or that all mice play when the cat's away because just some mice do. Just the same, Ralph, said his mother, I do wish you would be more careful with who you associate with. I am so afraid you'll fall in with the wrong sort of friends. I'm growing up, said Ralph. I'm getting too old to hang around a mouse nest all the time. I want to go out and see the world. I want to go down to the ground floor and see the kitchen and the dining room and the storeroom, and the garbage cans out back. Oh, Ralph, cried his mother. Not the ground floor, not all the way down there. You aren't old enough. Yes, I am, said Ralph stoutly. There's no telling what you might run into down there. Mouse traps, cats, poison. Why, out by the garbage cans, you might even be seen by an owl. I don't care, said Ralph. Someday I'm going downstairs. See you next time.